10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Today, we are going to talk about life cycle costing. Are you ready? Let's go! In this video, we are going to divide it into 3 parts, which are the introduction, the discussion of life cycle costing, and also the application of this method of costing in business. First of all, let us talk about the definition. Life cycle costing is a technique used to estimate the total cost of ownership. It may involve R&D costs, maintenance costs, marketing costs, and distribution costs. Next, what are the objectives of life cycle costing? The first one is life cycle costing assists management to smartly manage total cost throughout product's life cycle. The second one is to identify areas in which cost reduction efforts are likely to be more effective. Next objective is to estimate the cost impact of various designs and support opinion. Now, let us look at the concept of life cycle costing. The idea behind life cycle costing is to measure cost consequences of developing and making a product. Also, it helps to identify areas which cost reduction efforts are likely to be most effective. There are 5 phases under life cycle costing. The first is the development phase, the second, the introduction phase, the third, the growth phase, the fourth, the maturity phase, and lastly, the decline phase. Under the first phase, which is the product development phase, the firm is currently spending a lot in research and development costs. At this stage also, the product has not yet introduced to the market, which means the firm is making tons of losses with no actual sales. The next phase is called the introduction phase. This is the time when the firm starts to make some sales. Profit starts to go up, but still the firm is still making losses. For the third phase, which is known as the growth phase, the sales of the firm start to grow rapidly, and the company now is actually making profits. This is a time when persuasive advertising may be used to enhance sales of the firm. As the product enters its maturity stage, the sales increase until reaching the peak. This is the time when profit starts to fall as the product enters its saturation stage. Normally, the company would use the most expensive advertising to sustain its growth. Last but not least is the decline stage. At this time, there is low demand on the product sold due to the stiff competition in the market. Therefore, sales decrease, thus making lower profit for the company. Now, let us learn how to calculate product cost per unit by using life cycle costing. Under this illustration, a company is planning a new product. The projected selling price is $21 per unit and the projected units is 10,000 units. It is estimated that the lifetime cost of the product will be as follows. Design and development costs $50,000, manufacturing costs $10 per unit, and end-of-life costs $20,000. The questions are, what is the original life cycle cost per unit and is the product worth making on that basis? Now, let us look at the answers, shall we? Design and development costs would be $5 per unit, manufacturing costs would be $10 per unit, while end-of-life costs would be $2 per unit, making total life cycle cost per product equivalent to $17 per unit. Now, is the product worth making on that basis? The answer is yes, since it will bring an estimated profit of $4 per unit. Next, let us look at some of the ways in which life cycle costing helps us in planning, control, and decision making. As an overall view, life cycle costing helps management to identify and maximize profitability. Also, it helps management to minimize costs. Both of these helps management to improve forecasting at an earlier stage. Now, let us look at how life cycle costing helps in the management process. Under planning, life cycle costing helps the management to identify cost drivers that affect overall life cycle of the product and estimation of the number of occurrence. This helps to improve budgeting process as more accurate data can be incorporated into the planning phase. Next, life cycle costing helps management in planning a detailed schedule for better cost projections spanning more than one calendar period. This is because the relationship between cost and time period in which costs are expected to be incurred have been established. The third one under planning is, by applying this method of costing at an early stage, the management is able to identify any possible variances in the estimation costs for further monitoring. This helps management to be more prepared and taking earlier steps to mitigate risks associated with the product. Now, let us move on to the controlling process. Under life cycle costing, negative variances found when comparing estimated costs and actual costs are used to evaluate the impact on product's life cycle costs. This information helps management to determine which areas need to be focused on for cost reduction. At the same time, the variances gathered earlier are analyzed for further optimization and improvement. Optimization here means to reduce the impact of negative variances on the product's life cycle costs by making sure the solutions for them will have a positive overall impact on the total cost. Also, reasons for variances can be used as references in future planning. Now, let us look at how life cycle costing is applied in the decision making. Life cycle costing helps management to make better decisions when they can evaluate the relationships between several costs in a product's life cycle and the impact of their decisions on the product's life cycle costs. Next, life cycle costing helps management to decide which alternatives is worth pursuing based on the total life cycle cost of the product and the estimated price in which it can be sold. Not all things are sunshine and roses, so let us take a look at what are the benefits and challenges when implementing life cycle cost techniques. Life cycle costing allows the true costs associated with a procurement to be estimated more accurately. This helps to improve management's forecasting. The second benefit is life cycle costing helps management to analyze what are the performance trade-offs against product life cycle costs when they choose to focus on quality of goods and services to be provided. The third benefit is this method of costing helps management to focus on factors that drive costs and what are the resources needed to produce the product over its life cycle. This assists in improving awareness. Now, let us talk about the darker side of life cycle costing. The first challenge in life cycle costing is that it is time consuming. When you consider about the extensive data research that you need to do in order to collect accurate information regarding the product over several calendar periods. The second challenge is, it is costly to be implemented. The reason is quite simple. The longer it takes for accurate data to be gathered to calculate the product's life cycle cost, the higher the operating cost will be. Last but not least, the third challenge is in terms of technology, when introduction to new technology can replace the outdated ways of calculating costs in the life cycle costing method. Let us move on to the next part, which will talk about the implications of life cycle costing in pricing and business performance. For the first part, let us see how pricing differs under traditional method and life cycle costing method. Under pricing using traditional method, research and development costs from the new product are written off against the revenue being generated by the old product, making the old product look less profitable. This gives a distorted view on the evaluation of the old product's profitability. This, however, differs when using life cycle costing method, as the sum of all costs incurred over the lifetime of owning the product will be allocated over the product's own life cycle. Example of costs incurred over the product's lifetime would be the maintenance cost and any cost of upgrades. This assists management better in selecting what are the most profitable products for the company. Other than that, life cycle costing helps in the performance of the business. This is because under this method of costing, the business will be more aware of the relationship between cost and time. For example, in any new product launches, research and development costs will sometimes take up to 90% of a product's life cycle cost. This information provides the necessary motivation for the management to shorten the research and development stage by employing better strategies. This also directly helps to expedite the process of selling new products. This is because when the period of product's life cycle stages have been determined, the management can decide whether to shorten or lengthen any stages in the product's life cycle. In a nutshell, life cycle costing helps business performance by identifying and minimizing costs while looking for ways to maximize profit. Now, we finally arrive at the last part, which is the application of life cycle costing techniques in the real world. Under this part, we are going to talk about Toyota. This company implements life cycle costing in its packaging system to better understand and manage the related costs associated with packaging. With that, Environmental Packaging Impact Calculator was created to provide life cycle assessment and life cycle costing on any packaging methods used. The objectives of this calculator are simple. They are to decrease environmental burdens and reduce financial costs associated with packaging. It is important for Toyota to do this in order to reduce life cycle impacts and costs from packaging and distribution system.